Revealed, how a heartwarming encounter with a mechanic transformed a paralyzed CEO's life forever. Mark Thompson sat in his sleek, modern van, staring ahead into the shimmering afternoon sun. The reality of his situation crushed him. Once a successful CEO, he now struggled with the weight of physical limitations. A car accident had turned him into a shadow of his former self. The air was thick with silence in his spacious home, filled with reminders of the vibrant family dinners that had long vanished. His son, Jake, was miles away, carrying the baggage of their unresolved issues. His father, Charlie, was growing frail, suffering under the weight of regret and disappointment. There were no calls, no visits. Just emptiness. Desperate for change, Mark picked up the phone to locate a mechanic who could fix his van. He felt a twinge of hope, but it was quickly replaced by anxiety. What if he was turned away? What if he was met with sympathy he couldn't handle? Finally, he punched in a number he'd found online. Thompson Auto Care, the voice on the line said, warm and inviting. Mike, a humble war veteran, owned a small, cluttered garage on the outskirts of town. When Mark arrived, he was struck by the rich smell of gasoline and oil entwined with the sight of trucks in various states of repair, each with its own story. Mike's genuine smile cut through the static of Mark's world. Hey there. What can I do for you? He asked, his voice laced with sincerity. As Mark explained the van's troubles, it felt as if the weight was slowly lifting. There, amidst the clutter, he shared snippets of his past, his dreams, his family, his losses. I know what it's like to face challenges, Mike said gently. But you gotta find purpose in it all, or the scars will just weigh you down. Mark felt a strange kinship with this mechanic. Their talks turned into deep conversations about love, life, and the importance of community. It was too long before tears welled in Mark's eyes as memories of laughter faded. But there, in that garage, something started to shift. There was warmth in Mike's words, a beacon of hope flickering in the distance. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each visit to the garage chipped away at the walls Mark had built around himself. There was something about Mike's tough love, his life stories, that motivated Mark to reach out to Jake. Yet as the idea took form, Mark's heart thundered with anxiety. Would his son even want to hear from him? The thought gnawed at him, dark and foreboding. Then, one day, a crisis arose at the garage. An old friend of Mike suffered a heart attack, and Mark watched the heavy burden fall onto his new friend. In that moment, everything clicked. He realized that if he couldn't confront his fears now, he might never find the strength to mend what had been broken in his family. He was at a crossroads. As he sat in his van later that day, phone in hand, the weight of silence loomed heavy. Would he retreat back into solitude, or would he finally make the call that could change everything? The tension hung in the air, thick with unanswered questions. Mark took a deep breath, his fingers trembling over the phone. Every second stretched into an eternity as he weighed his options. The silence inside the van was deafening, filled with the echoes of memories he couldn't escape. Jake's laughter, Charlie's stern face filled with disapproval, the visions of all he had lost in the blink of an eye. After a long, torturous moment, he pressed the call button. The ringing felt like a lifetime, each tone resonating deep within him. When Jake's voice finally answered, Mark's heart raced. Hey, Dad. Jake, it's me, Mark gulped. His lips felt dry, and he forced himself to continue. I wanted to check in. It's been a while. There was a beat of silence on the other end before Jake replied, his voice tight. Yeah, it has. A wave of regret swept over Mark. I know things aren't great between us. I want to change that. Can we talk? A pause. Mark could almost hear Jake's thoughts racing, the indecision crackling through the phone line. Where are you? Relief mingled with anxiety as Mark answered, I'm at the garage Thompson Auto Care. Maybe we could meet here. Okay. Give me an hour. Jake's response was curt. It wasn't much, but it was something. An opportunity. The next hour felt like an eternity. Mark's thoughts swirled, a mix of hope and dread. What if Jake didn't want to forgive? What if their conversation only unearthed deeper wounds? But the memory of Mike's words lingered in his mind. Find purpose, or the scars will weigh you down. When Jake finally arrived, Mark watched as he stepped out of his car, arching an eyebrow at the modest garage. It was a stark contrast to the imposing buildings that had framed their lives before. Mark felt a swell of vulnerability. Here, in the midst of grease-stained tools and half-finished projects, they were just two men facing the wreckage of their past. Hey, Jake said, uncertainty etched across his face. Hey, Mark replied, his voice softer. They paused for a moment, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, two people stuck in the quiet struggle of their own making. Let's talk inside, Mark suggested, and they moved toward the open garage doors where Mike greeted them with a smile and a nod. What can I get you guys? Mike asked, oblivious to the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Just some water, thanks, Mark replied, his throat dry. Once inside, the hum of machinery and the scent of oil formed an unexpected cocoon. The sounds were familiar, soothing even, bringing Mark back to simpler times when he had fixed things rather than feeling so broken. Dad, why now? Jake spoke, his gaze fixed on the floor. The question hung heavy in the air, filled with years of unresolved pain. Mark took a deep breath and met his son's gaze. Because I can't change the past. I can't fix what I did wrong. But I want to try. He paused, his voice catching. I want to be here for you, and I want us to be a family again. Tears filled Jake's eyes as he struggled to find his own voice. It's not that simple, Dad, I know. Mark's heart pounded in his chest. But I'm willing to fight for it. For us. A flicker of hope sparked in Jake's eyes. Are you really? Before Mark could respond, the sound of a crash echoed outside, pulling both their attention. Anxiety twisted in Mark's stomach. What now? Could this be another barrier to their connection? But as Mike rushed out to investigate, Mark realized that life doesn't pause for healing. It moves forward, pushing against the wounds that refuse to close. Whatever that was, it can wait, Mark said softly, turning back to Jake. We have to face this. With uncertainty hanging in the air, they both braced for whatever might come next. They were finally on the edge of something meaningful, ready to face not only their past but the possibilities of their future. But would their conversation take them deeper into healing, or would it crumble under the weight of unspoken words? The tension built once more, and Mark felt the stirrings of hope, but how far could it stretch before it broke? Mark felt his heart hammering in his chest, the weight of the moment pressing down. He looked at Jake, who was still staring at the floor, his expression a blend of anger and sadness. It was a complicated mix, a boy wrestling with a man's burdens. Can we just start over? Mark whispered, as if saying it too loudly might shatter the air between them. Can we try to talk about what happened? Jake's jaw clenched. You want to talk about the accident? You want to go there right now? His voice trembled, revealing the deep-seated pain he carried. I know it's tough. But avoiding it isn't helping either of us, Mark replied, his voice steady but soft. He could feel the undeniable gap, the years of silence and misunderstanding crackling around them like static. Jake inhaled deeply, his chest rising with unresolved anger. You don't get to choose when you want to talk about it, Dad. You're the one who left. At that moment, the harsh reality flooded back. Mark had thought he was doing the right thing, keeping Jake and Charlie safe from the fallout of his decisions. But in reality, he had pushed them both away, leaving a chasm too wide to bridge. I know I made the choice that hurt you, Mark said, his voice catching. I was wrong. But I'm here now. And I truly want to listen. Just tell me how you feel. Jake looked up, eyes glistening. Do you even care? Do you have any idea what I went through? I didn't just lose you. I lost my family. I didn't know how much I was doing. I thought it was what you wanted. Mark stumbled over his words, realizing how naive he had been. I thought being away would help you both cope. Coping? With what? The empty chair at family dinners. Watching Mom try to be both parents. I had to grow up fast, Dad, and it sucked. Jake's voice cracked, allowing the years of bottled pain to surface. And now here you are, expecting me to just forgive and forget. The tension hung thick, sharp as a knife. Mark could only nod, his throat tight, understanding the weight of Jake's words. But he also felt the first flickers of something deeper, an invitation to bridge this gap, to try and connect again. I've been lost for so long. Mark finally admitted. I didn't know how to be a father after everything fell apart. I don't even know if I want you as a father, Jake said, his eyebrows knitting together. What if this is just another false promise? The uncertainty of that statement hit Mark hard, but it also fueled his resolve. I get it. You have every right to feel that way. But I'm here to prove you wrong. Give me a chance to show you I can be better. Just then, Mike returned, the earlier crash clearly forgotten amid the weight of their conversation. Everything okay, guys? He asked, glancing between the two with concern in his eyes. It's Mark started, but Jake cut him off. Not really. But it doesn't matter, Jake said, his frustration rising again. I just don't know if this is worth it. Mark felt the impact of those words deep in his core, a lump forming in his throat. It is for me, Mark replied, desperation creeping in. I guess that's all I can give you for now. Just my commitment to try. Please, Jake. In that moment, the world around them seemed to blur as everything silent fell away. Mark felt raw, exposed, but alive in a way he hadn't been in years. A flicker of hope burned bright amid the darkness. Jake shifted his weight, uncertainty still dancing in his eyes, but there was a flicker there, a question behind them: could they really begin again? As Mark held his breath, waiting for Jake's answer, the truth loomed large in the silence. Everything was at stake in that moment. Could they both take that leap toward healing? Or would fear and hurt keep them paralyzed? Before Jake could respond, the garage door creaked again, and Mark felt the familiar churn of anxiety in his stomach. Whatever was about to unfold next could shatter this fragile connection he was fighting to build. The sound of the door creaking open felt like a slap in the face, pulling both Mark and Jake from their fragile moment. Mark turned just in time to see Charlie stepping into the garage, her face flushed and concerned. The shift in the atmosphere was instantaneous. Her bright smile faded, replaced by confusion as she took in the heavy tension wrapped around the two men. Hey, what is going on? She asked, her voice light but laced with unease. Charlie was only 12, but she had a knack for sensing when things weren't right. Nothing, Jake said quickly, his tone sharp. He shot Mark a look that said, don't say a word. But Mark felt compelled to clear the air, if only a little. Just trying to talk things out, Mark replied, forcing a casualness into his tone that he didn't truly feel. We've had some, misunderstandings. Charlie's brow furrowed. Is it about Dad leaving? Mark winced at the straightforwardness of her words. That piercing honesty, so characteristic of children, struck him harder than any debate had. It's complicated, honey, Mark said softly. Jake turned away, crossing his arms. Yeah, complicated is one way to put it. Charlie stepped closer. But you're both fighting to fix it, right? You just need to talk. It was like she didn't understand the depth of the chasm that had formed between them. The innocence in her voice struck Mark. She didn't yet see things in the grim shades he and Jake did. The hopefulness in her eyes was a stark contrast. Something like that, Mark replied, his own weariness creeping into his voice. Charlie looked back and forth between them, determination etched on her face. Well, it seems like you both need to just listen. Sometimes that helps, right? Mark's heart warmed a little, witnessing the way her belief in them simmered beneath the surface. But the thought of Jake's rejection hung heavy. Charlie, it's not that easy, Jake began, shaking his head. Why not? She pressed, undeterred. You love each other, don't you? Isn't that what family's about? The question hung there, bold and demanding. Mark felt his heart swell with a mix of longing and despair. He wanted to say yes, but he knew love wasn't enough to heal the wounds. They had to confront the truth, face the pain. Love doesn't fix everything, Charlie, Jake said, his voice thick. Maybe it could start to, she insisted with a small, almost trembling voice. You two can't keep pretending it doesn't hurt. I hate seeing you both like this. I just want my family back. The tears threatened to spill from Mark's eyes, and he fought to hold them back. This wasn't about the past, the accident, the separation. It took everything in him to push through to this moment, to want to try again. He looked at Jake, searching for a flicker of understanding, a glimmer of connection, something they could all hold on to. But Jake was lost in his turmoil, staring at the floor with furrowed brows, struggling to balance anger with vulnerability. Can we really? Mark whispered, his voice slipping with emotion. Can we start this again? For the both of you, for us? The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words, almost unbearable. Just then, Mark's phone buzzed from his pocket, shattering the moment. He fished it out, peering at the screen. It was a name he hadn't seen in years, his old assistant. Guys, I have to take this, he said, his heart racing again, unsure of how to leave the moment now hanging in the air. As he walked away to answer, he glanced back at Jake and Charlie. Their faces told him everything he needed to know. Perhaps this wasn't over yet. But who was calling now? And what would it mean for the fragile ground they were all trying to walk on? Mark stepped outside, shutting the garage door behind him, trying to block out the weight of the silence left inside. The jingle of the phone continued to echo in his mind, gnawing at him as he glanced at the screen again. The name flashed before him, and a wave of nostalgia crashed over him. Pamela. Hey, it's Mark, he answered, forcing positivity into his voice. Mark. Wow, it's been ages. Pamela's voice came back warmly. I just heard about your company's recent struggles. I wanted to check in on you. How are things? Mark could already feel the memory of the past creeping back, the countless hours spent together as they built their career from the ground up. Yet it felt different now, like a faded photograph of a life that didn't exist anymore. Things are complicated, he replied, unsure of how much he should reveal. Well, let's catch up, she suggested, her tone gentle and inviting. There's a lot we can talk about. He hesitated, but the warmth in her voice drew him in. Sure, he noticed Charlie and Jake through the garage window. They were still standing in silence, lost in their own thoughts. A pang of guilt bubbled inside him for stepping away, but he knew he needed a moment. The conversation turned lighter with Pamela sharing stories from the office. Her laughter rang in his ear, an echo of the old days, and for a brief moment, all felt right. Mark, you still working on those trucks? She asked, and he could hear the teasing in her voice as if time hadn't changed their rapport. Still am, he chuckled, glancing back at the garage. You remember the old blue one? We had to work on it 3 times just to get it running. Of course. You were more dedicated to that truck than half your team. You'd go on and on about how it embodied true American spirit. That made him smile, but then a shadow passed over his face. Things have changed, Pam. Family stuff. He sensed her silence, a pause filled with understanding. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm here if you need to talk. You mean a lot to me, Mark. Her words hung in the air, filled with unspoken history. Suddenly, he felt torn between the past and present, feeling her support while knowing Jake and Charlie were back inside waiting for him. Thanks, it really means a lot, he replied, voice softening. I don't know how to fix things with Jake. It feels impossible. You've always been good at finding solutions, she encouraged. Take it step by step. Remember, sometimes it's about just showing up. Let them see you trying, even if it's messy. Mark frowned, feeling the weight of those words sink into his heart. Could it really be that simple? As he wrapped up the call, he took a deep breath, his heart pounding. He needed to go back, to confront the truth. Stepping inside the garage again, the air was thick with unresolved tension. Charlie looked up, her eyes bright with hope waiting for him. Jake stood at the far side, arms crossed, but the tension on his face had eased slightly. Sorry for the interruption, Mark said, feeling his voice betray the nervousness squeezing his chest. I just talked with an old friend. It helped a little. What did she say? Charlie's curiosity was piqued, her youthful innocence shining through. Mark exchanged a look with Jake, his heart pounding as he considered his next words. She reminded me that sometimes the first step to fixing things is to really just show up. Not just physically but emotionally too. Jake shifted his weight, a flicker of something like understanding crossing his features. Sounds easy enough, he said, his voice steady but searching. But it's not, Mark admitted. Not for me at least. I've messed up. Charlie took a step closer. But you're here, right? You're trying, just like I asked. Mark swallowed hard at the compassion in her eyes. I guess I am, but I need to ask something too. He looked between Charlie and Jake, their expressions expectant. Can we try talking? Each of us, out loud, about what we're feeling. Jake finally uncrossed his arms, taking a deep breath. I had a feeling this was coming. Mark's heart raced as he felt the walls between them start to crumble. They were finally ready to take that step. But would they find the words to express the truth, or would it all slip away again? Let's try, Jake said, his voice stronger now. And as they sat down together, Mark felt a glint of hope. Whether they were ready or not, the conversation was finally beginning. Yet just as he opened his mouth to start, his phone buzzed again in his pocket. The screen read emergency. Mark's stomach dropped. What new challenge awaited him now, threatening to pull him back from this moment they were just beginning to reclaim? Mark's heart raced as he fished his phone from his pocket, the buzz feeling like a thunderclap in the tense silence. He glanced at the screen once more. The word, emergency, loomed over him, heavy with unspoken dread. Hang on a second, he said, holding up a hand to stall the budding conversation. The look on Charlie's face shifted from eager anticipation to concern. Jake's expression hardened again, arms crossed defensively. He swiped the screen, bringing it to his ear just as he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Hello. Mark. Thank God you picked up. It was Susan from payroll, her voice frantic. We've lost the server. All payroll data is gone. We need you to come back. Lost? What do you mean lost? Mark's mind raced as the implications began to settle in. Chaos. Devastation. He could picture the panic in the office. How did it happen? It was this spike we didn't expect. I don't know. We were blindsided, and now everything is down. We need you here. Every ounce of hope he felt a moment ago began to drain away. He glanced at Jake, who had straightened at the mention of crisis, his eyebrows furrowing. Charlie, too young to fully grasp the enormity of the situation, looked confused. Okay, I'll be there as soon as I can. He hung up, the weight of 1,000 responsibilities crashing down on him. Jake stepped forward, the tension bubbling back to the surface. What now? You need to go back to work. It's an emergency. They need me. Mark hated how hollow his voice sounded, almost as if he were making excuses. It was just one more thing that pulled him away from their moment of honesty. Charlie's eyes widened as she took a step back, her small frame making her appear vulnerable in that moment. But we were finally going to talk. I know. Mark said, frustration gnawing at him. But I have to handle this. I can't let everyone down again. Jake's expression hardened. Looks like that's always your go-to, huh? Running away when things get tough. That's not fair. Mark shot back, the words bursting from him. You don't understand what it's like to have all this responsibility on your back. I can't just ignore it. Maybe if you'd spent more time here instead of hiding in that office of yours, Jake started, sharp and accusing. Enough. Mark's voice came out louder than he intended. Silence swallowed the room, a heavy, suffocating weight. He rubbed a hand over his face, feeling the fatigue creep in. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap. It's all so much. Charlie looked back and forth between the two men, her eyes glinting with unshed tears. I thought we were going to be okay. Mark's heart ached at her words. We are okay, I promise. Just give me a moment. Do what you need to do, Jake said curtly, turning his back slightly. The rift that had just begun to heal felt as if it were cracking wide open again. Wait. Mark called after him, desperation bubbling to the surface. I need to know if we can talk later. Can we? I promise I'll make the time. Jake paused, glancing over his shoulder, his expression inscrutable. I don't know. We'll see. Mark felt the hopeless pit in his stomach twist. He reached for Jake's retreating figure. Jake, please. But with the tension in the air thickening, Mark swallowed his words, sensing that this moment too had slipped through his fingers. Turning away, he knew he had to leave, to return to a world struggling for stability. As he stepped out of the garage, he felt a profound silence lingering behind him. Each step felt heavier as he walked away from the chance to reconnect. But with each heartbeat, he knew he would have to face the truth of his choices sooner rather than later. Just as he reached for his keys, something flickered in the corner of his eye, the flickering light of Charlie's phone, with an incoming text that read urgent. What could it possibly be? Mark hesitated, the knot in his stomach tightening again. Would this be another distraction, or could it change the course of the evening yet again? Mark turned his head towards Charlie, who stared at her phone with wide eyes. What does it say? He asked, his voice taut with anticipation. I don't know. I think it's from my mom, she replied, her little fingers fumbling to unlock the screen. There was a beat of awkward silence as they waited, the tightness in Mark's chest growing with each passing second. Can you read it? He urged gently, sensing that this was not just another teen drama unfolding in front of them but a potential lifeline in his moment of despair. Charlie nodded, swallowing hard. It says she's at the hospital, something about Dad being in an accident. Mark felt his heart stop. He grabbed for Charlie's shoulder, feeling the gravity of the situation sink like a stone. We need to go. Right now. Jake had been lingering by the car, his back still turned, but at Mark's words, he spun around. What happened? Charlie's dad. He's at the hospital. We have to get her there, Mark said, urgency fueling his voice. The previous fight seemed distant now. This was bigger than petty disagreements or workplace crises. Jake's eyes flickered with something more than annoyance. Might it have been concern? Do you know what happened? No, but we need to move. Mark said, almost pleading. Charlie's face was a canvas of worry and fear. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. I can't go alone. I need you both. The tension between Mark and Jake lingered like a ghost, but there was an unspoken understanding that drifted into the air. All right, let us do this, Jake said, his voice steadying. He moved closer, allowing Charlie to step into the center as if forming a protective circle around her. They piled into the car, the urgency thickening as they sped away from the garage. Mark's mind spiraled with thoughts, questions of what could have happened to Charlie's dad, the uncertainty of the hospital environment, the desperate need to be strong for the girl sitting behind him. He glanced up in the rearview mirror. Charlie was staring out the window, her small frame tense with worry, brows knitted like a fragile sculpture ready to crack. As they rushed, silence reigned, broken only by the sound of the engine. Mark fought against the memories of moments he wished he'd spent differently, to think of Jake and Charlie, and how he could taken time to truly be present in their lives instead of hiding behind the walls of responsibility. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he finally asked, breaking the silence, looking directly at Charlie through the mirror. She shrugged, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't want to ruin our time together. It didn't seem that important compared to what was happening." Mark's heart sank further. "It's always important. You know that, right? I thought you had enough on your plate," she whispered, her voice tiny in the confined space. "Sweetheart," Jake intervened, his tone softer than Mark had heard it before, "nothing is more important than family." Mark clenched the steering wheel, feeling the warmth of Jake's words wash over both of them. They were entering the hospital parking lot, and Mark's instinct kicked in. He needed to be strong, not just for Charlie, but for himself. As they raced through the hospital doors, Charlie moved ahead, fueled by pure adrenaline. Mark and Jake followed, each man grappling with his own internal struggles, how to bridge the distance created by responsibilities, misunderstandings, and now, the looming threat of loss. They approached the reception desk, and the world around them faded. Mark's attention was locked on Charlie, breathing heavy with anxiety as she faced the nurse. The urgency of the situation settled like a weight in the air. The news felt raw, real, and terrifying. Would they be able to face what awaited them on the other side of those hospital doors? Just as the nurse began to speak, her face full of somber compassion, Mark caught a glimpse of Jake's expression, one of determination mixed with a pinch of fear. And suddenly, he found himself wondering if their paths would intertwine in ways they never expected within these hospital walls. Would this be the moment everything changed? As the nurse opened her mouth, ready to share news that could shift their lives forever, Mark braced himself for the truth. The nurse hesitated, her gaze flickering between Charlie and the two men standing beside her. A silence fell over the reception area, thick and stifling, as if the air itself held its breath. Mark's eyes darted to Charlie, her lips parted in a silent prayer, a plea that this was not what it seemed. "Are you here for?" The nurse paused, collecting her thoughts. "Charlie Reynolds?" "Yes," Charlie said, her voice trembling. "Your father was in an accident." The nurse's voice was careful, apologetic. "He is stable but unconscious. If you'd like to see him, you can go to the emergency room now." "I need to see him." Charlie's voice was stronger now, the fear morphing into determination as she stepped forward. Mark and Jake exchanged quick glances, feeling the weight of a father's love and the panic of what might have happened. They followed Charlie without hesitation, each step echoing down the sterile corridor, the fluorescent lights above almost too bright against the dull ache of uncertainty. As they reached the emergency room, the door swung open, revealing a small waiting area bustling with families and loved ones. Chaos unfolded around them. Some faces showed relief, while others wore anguish like a second skin. Mark felt the palpitations in his chest as he searched for answers, wishing he could shield Charlie from the reality that awaited. "Is he going to be all right?" Charlie's question hung in the air like a silent scream. She clasped her hands tightly, a single tear spilling down her cheek. Mark stepped closer, feeling the overwhelming urge to soothe her, though he had no answers. "We're going to find out," he whispered, offering a small smile, trying to be a pillar of strength even as fear consumed him. Jake, quiet yet grounded, stood protectively beside them. "You're not alone in this, Charlie. We're both right here," he added, his voice firm, giving a sense of assurance that seemed to thread through the chaos. The nurse returned, gesturing for them to follow. "You can see him now. Just keep it short, he needs rest." Charlie nodded, a mixture of hope and dread swirling in her expression as she stepped into the room. Mark and Jake fell behind her, the beeping of machines filling the silence. The sight of Charlie's father struck them both with a heavy punch. The man they knew, vibrant and full of life, now reduced to a still figure lying in a hospital bed. Charlie approached slowly, her heart breaking at the sight of the man she loved. "Dad," she whispered, gripping the edge of the bed. Mark watched her, a rush of emotions crashing within. The sight of her fragile resolve broke through his own walls. He wanted nothing more than to take her pain away, yet all he could do was bear witness that a shuddering breath from Charlie pulled him back. "You have to wake up. I need you," she implored, tears streaming freely now. Mark felt his own heart constrict. How little control they had over the lives they cherished. Jake stepped closer, his presence a reminder that they were all in this together. "You've got this, Charlie. Keep talking to him," he encouraged softly. As Charlie squeezed her father's hand, something flickered. A slight movement. Their breaths hitched in unison, hope mingling with disbelief. The monitors began to beep faster, a telling sign of life returning, pulse by pulse. "Did you see that?" Charlie gasped, her spirit igniting with feverish hope. Mark's eyes widened. "Maybe he's hearing you. Keep going." But just as the room brimmed with the electric charge of possibility, the door swung open, revealing a doctor with an expression of urgency. The calm promise of a moment was about to shift, and Mark sensed it like a tidal wave rushing in. "Ms. Reynolds," the doctor began, but the tension in his voice set off alarm bells. "Is he going to be all right?" Charlie asked again, the words barely above a whisper. As the doctor stepped forward, Mark's pulse quickened. What would he say? Would this be the moment everything changed again? The doctor took a breath, his eyes scanning the room. Charlie's grip on her father's hand tightened, her knuckles turning white, as she hovered between hope and the looming dread hanging over them all. "I'm afraid there are complications," the doctor said, his voice steady but laced with concern. "We've stabilized him, but we need to do some tests to determine the full extent of his injuries." Charlie felt as if the ground had shifted under her feet. "What do you mean complications?" she choked out. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as the doctor explained the possibilities with clinical precision. "Injuries to the head, potential internal bleeding." The words blurred together in a whirlwind of anxiety. With every detail, Mark gained a clearer view of Charlie's anguish. She was fighting to keep it together, but he could see her fear rising like a tide threatening to swallow her whole. "Tests?" she echoed, a quaver in her voice. What if he doesn't come back?" Jake, standing close, stepped in without hesitation. "He will. We believe in him," he said, his voice unwavering, an anchor amidst the storm. The doctor nodded, noting their resolve. "We need to act quickly. I know this is difficult, but I assure you that our team will do everything we can." Mark felt an instinctive pull to protect Charlie, to shield her from the brutal nature of reality, even while he was just as terrified. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "He's a fighter. Just look at him." A faint flicker of appreciation crossed Charlie's face, but within moments resentment bubbled beneath the surface, threatening to spill over. "You don't know my dad. He's the strongest person I know." Her determination sparked something deep within Mark. "And he'll draw strength from all of us," he said, hoping to ignite a sense of unity as they faced the unknown together. The doctor turned to leave, his duty calling him away. "I'll be back with more information shortly. I promise." "Wait." Charlie called after him, her voice rising. "When can I see him again?" "After the tests. We'll let you know." With that, he vanished into the corridor, leaving Charlie standing at the precipice of despair. Mark shifted closer, desperate to pull her back from the edge. "Charlie, let us go wait in the family room for a bit. You need a break." She shook her head violently. "No, I can't go." "What if he needs me?" "Charlie," Jake interjected gently, "staying here won't help him. You'll only drive yourself mad waiting. Let us step out just for a moment." With a heavy heart, Charlie finally relented. The door closed softly behind them as they walked into the waiting area. The chaos continued around them, but it felt surreal, like a world turned dark while time froze in their little bubble. "I can't lose him," Charlie murmured, tears spilling down her cheeks. Mark's heart cracked open. "You won't lose him. We're doing this together. A family together." It felt like a promise. Before they could settle into the waiting room, a commotion drew their attention. A man pacing wildly, his hand flying through his hair, cried out in distress. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" Curiosity pulled Charlie in, and she turned slightly to see more. The man's anguished expression echoed her own fears. Mark stepped closer to Charlie, their bond tightening, but it wasn't just their collective grief holding them together, was it? "Do you think Mark started, could it be?" Charlie's eyes widened, realization dawning on them both. Everything was unraveling in unpredictable ways, and the unexpected was looming just beyond the corner of the emergency room. "Is that someone else waiting for news on their loved one?" Jake whispered, hesitant yet intrigued. And with that, she felt the weight of her own worries shifting. Perhaps, even amidst chaos, they weren't alone in this battle. But that thought led to so many more questions. Questions that might change everything they believed about family, love, and hope. What if they were all connected in ways they never imagined? "Charlie," Mark said, breaking her train of thought, "are you ready to find out who that is?" The air crackled with tension, and Charlie's heart raced, brimming with anticipation and fear. Would they discover something that could alter not only their fate but their understanding of bonds that could stretch across the pain? As uncertainty loomed ahead, they stepped further into the chaos, ready to uncover the next layer of their own tangled story. The waiting room buzzed like a hive, but in that moment, Mark felt time slow to a crawl. Charlie squeezed his hand, her small fingers shaking with a mix of fear and bravery. Jake stood closely, his gaze fixed on the commotion unfolding in the corner. The reality felt surreal, like they were all brought together by a chaotic thread of fate. As they approached the distraught man, Mark read the anguished expression on his face. He looked familiar, a flicker of reality crashed over him like a wave. "Jake, wait, but he didn't have to finish." The man turned, and the recognition hit them all at once. "Mark?" The voice was choked, raw. "What are you doing here?" "James." Mark's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're Charlie's dad's best friend." What happened?" James's shoulders slumped. "He's in the hospital. Car accident, it's bad." The three exchanged looks, a silent understanding passing between them. Charlie's heart raced as she struggled to comprehend the weight of the news. "My dad, what do you mean?" Her voice trembled, laced with concern. "He was in the same pile-up as mine," James said, his voice thick with emotion. His eyes glazed over. "It's just so overwhelming. I thought I'd lose him too." Mark stepped closer, feeling the urgency of James's pain hit home. This wasn't just about Charlie's father anymore, it was a shared struggle, a haunting reflection of the night they were all facing together. "We'll get through this," Mark said, his voice steadier than he felt. "We have to find a way to stay strong for them." The unexpected bond weaved tighter, binding them through shared fears. Charlie, inspired by the connection, stepped forward. "We can do this together. I won't let my dad fight alone, and neither will you." James looked at her, and for the first time, a flicker of hope broke through his anguish. "My son, he has been away for so long. This is a wake-up call, isn't it?" The words hung heavily in the air. It transcended familial ties, it was a moment for all of them to redefine what it meant to be there for one another. Across the room, Mark caught Jake's eye. "Do you want to talk to him? Connect?" he asked quietly, feeling the pressure of the moment. Jake hesitated, glancing between his father and Charlie before nodding, determination washing over him. "Yeah, let's," Jake replied, stepping forward. "Maybe your son will want to share how he is doing." As they spoke, Mark felt his heart shift. Witnessing his son wade into a conversation fueled by empathy and understanding. It felt monumental. They were beginning to build a bridge where once there had been a chasm. Gaining strength through each shared word, each heartfelt confession, before long, news spread through the waiting room that families were slowly being called in to see their loved ones. Tension mounted anew, but this time, there was an air of fellowship among them. They weren't just fearful individuals facing their own battles, they were all connected in their desperation. The nurse stepped forward again, looking directly at Charlie, Jake, and Mark. "You can go in now. He is stable and awake. He is asking for you." Charlie's face lit up, and before they even stepped through the door, Mark felt the tastes of pride and hope mingling in the air. They were walking into this together, as a family. No more holding back, no more running away. As they entered the room, Charlie gasped. A flicker of recognition ignited the moment her dad turned his eyes toward her. "Dad!" she cried, rushing to his side. "Charlie," he whispered, strength fading but still fighting. "I knew you'd come." The tears unleashed upon them were no longer just tears of despair, but rather, tears of healing. In that vulnerable moment, a ripple of transformation unspooled as they became intertwined in love and support. There were no more barriers. Mark felt tears slip down his own cheeks as he watched Charlie's father pull her close. It was a reminder of the bond they were reclaiming at that very moment that as the family embraced, Jake turned to Mark. "Can we keep doing it? Keep talking, keep working together?" Mark nodded through the weight of his emotions. "Absolutely, son. Always." And in the heart of pain, amidst uncertainty, they began to see a new way forward. The harsh edges of their past were softened, welcoming a future bright with belonging. Families could mend, ties could heal together, they were redefining possibility. This marked the beginning. As they continued to hold each other in unity, Mark felt a flicker of hope take root in his heart. They were no longer lost shadows but a vibrant patchwork of lives intertwined, ready to face whatever storms lay ahead. But before they could celebrate, Mark turned to the camera, the moment feeling bigger than the three of them. You need to subscribe now for more stories like this. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm that keeps us going. Comment below, let us know your reactions and feelings about this ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can spread the story of healing, love, and hope.